Yo, it's your man with the plan, Martial Arts here to talk about Xenoblade 2, Torna, the Golden Country, or what I like to call it, Xenoblade 2 Golden. For many of those that have played the original Xenoblade 2, or at least looked up stuff about the original Xenoblade 2, you'll see that there's a lot of, I guess you can say, controversy about the original Xenoblade 2, about how things were handled and certain voice acting and certain scenes and certain story elements were handled, and even some gameplay aspects. They think that it was not as quality as it was in the previous games. And honestly, I do have my own issues with Xenoblade 2. It's the reason why I've been sitting on this for so long. I've been sitting on Torna, the Golden Country, for such a long time. I think I bought it a few months back, and some of the things in 2 kind of turned me off, even though I really like 2 a lot. Don't get me wrong. And because of the situation the world is in by the time while I'm recording this video, I put some time into, playing and finishing Torna the Golden Country. And I just kind of really want to talk about what I thought was better from the main game, what I thought was worse than the main game, and just overall feel of the game. And the first thing I want to talk about is the story and characters. So, because of Xenoblade 2, the original Xenoblade 2, I was not the biggest fan of the human characters. I feel like the human characters kind of held back the Blade characters a little bit. I like Zeke, though. I think Zeke was a nice character, but I think Rex and Tora and, all the other characters, I think the Blades were a lot more interesting than the humans, which I felt like was a big problem with Xenoblade 2, in my personal opinion, because I think a lot of people do like a lot of the human characters, but there's a reason why I think you don't see as much fan art of the Blades as you do the human characters. But in this game, I felt like the humans and the Blades had a more equal relationship, and I felt like they both had some charms that the others didn't have because of, and you could feel the difference between humans and Blades, and that they had different types of charm to them. And I really like that about how the game portrayed that, even for the short time it was, the game ran. And I liked the story bits that did come out of the Torna of the Golden Country, because it's really heavily dependent on the main story of the original. Like, do not play this if you haven't gone through the main story of the original, because it ruins a lot of the intrigue and a lot of the questions that you have from the main story, if you even care. And it kind of, even though there's a lot of things in this that honestly were missing from the main game. Like, a good example is Jin. Like, Jin, you didn't feel as much for Jin. You wouldn't have felt as much for Jin. Well, I guess you don't feel as much for him because you don't really understand his background. This gives him, the nice background for Jin and for a lot of the other characters that exist later in the game, because you're just sitting here thinking that everybody's an a-hole. Like, why is everybody doing this? Why does everybody care so much? And I felt like they tell you but don't show you, but Torna comes out later and, and it tells you, it shows you instead of telling you, but the thing is that by then it's already like kind of, the emotional impact of some of the stuff could have been in the main game, and they had a lot more emotional impact. But I digress. But overall, the story and how it connects to the original, I really liked it. I think it is a very political, and it's a little bit of like a detail oriented story, kind of like how Crisis Core is for Final Fantasy, and how Birth by Sleep is for Kingdom Hearts. It's a lot of it just is there to answer future questions, and I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with that, honestly. I do kind of wish that they switched the story around, because as much as I like the original Xenoblade 2, I do like the dynamic of the characters a little bit more, and like, I think I already said that, but I like the dynamic of the characters a little bit more in Golden. So I kind of wish they switched the main story was Golden and the extra story was Xenoblade 2, and because it felt like it was missing. It just felt like I was more intrigued by Golden, I think. But overall, I think the people who took the show has to be has to be Jin and Lora. Jin and Lora were very lovable. Very, very lovable. I like them a lot. I do think Addam and Mythra were really good. And I also liked Hugo and Brighid. I think Hugo needed another chapter or two. And I'm going to kind of talk about that in a second. But I think at the chapter, it felt like they were missing a chapter or two. And there's some characters that didn't have development. It felt like there's this community system in the game where you upgrade your, your level and you're forced to do side quests. You're actually forced to do side quests. And, you get levels up, and there's about 4 or 5 levels in the community system. And about at level 2, which is the first upgrade, there's like this big wall of side quests you have to do. Like, I think like tons of side quests. And it felt like just filler for the sake of filler, because it felt like they were going to add another chapter or two there, because it skips from level 2 to level 4 to enter the next story segment, which is close to the end of the game, pretty much. And I felt really weird. It felt like they were trying to add more, but they ran out of time. That's what the whole game felt like. It's very close to the very end. I felt like they ran out of time. They had the ending what they wanted planned out, but they felt like they wanted to put more in there to make the ending make more sense and give characters more depth. But I feel like they ran out of time. But I really liked how the story worked out. I think Mythra was fascinating because a lot of people say Mythra was the same in this game, but she was a little different. She was a lot more cold in this game. And it's kind of hard to tell because they gave her the archetype of a tsundere, which is the whole purpose of a tsundere is to be a cold, kind of sweet but cold girl. So it was hard to tell, but she would say certain things about like, "Oh, I don't care if people died. I don't. Why should you care? It's like I'm your blade. I do whatever the heck whatever the heck you want me to do. I'll eliminate everybody if you want me to." And that it was very different. It was a little different than the Mythra we knew, and it was nice because you could kind of see the difference. Well, there wasn't that much of a difference, but there was a little bit of a difference between her and Malos. Like, her and Malos were very similar, according to what this game showed us. Like, they're both very prideful. They both have they're very sure of themselves because of the power they have. They're very, they have really big egos. And it kind of shows because with even like how Mythra works, it almost seems like Pyra was like, if Mythra didn't have the ego behind her, and it was like a mixture between what Mythra wanted to be and Mythra without the ego. And it was just interesting because you can kind of see after you see the ending of the game that Pyra was kind of like her drastic like last ditch effort to like protect herself from the stuff she did at the very end of the game. And it was just very interesting. Like, it was basically like a coping mechanism. Pyra was a semi coping mechanism, but I also think that was like a version of her too. It was just very interesting, like all the little details. Like I said, it's very interesting in the overall scheme, but by itself it's whatever, it's okay by itself. But it was nice to see the Jin and Lora stuff, and just to see the bond between them. How, like, honestly, they were like the closest Blade and Driver I think I've seen out of 2, both the Torna and the original. Like, their bond was tight. And I really like that. I really, really like that. I gotta say that... I think the only thing I would have changed a little bit, that other than the big problem I had, I think if they were to add 1 or 2 more chapters, which they probably would have done, I think they needed to give Hugo and the 2 boys that you journey with, a little bit more character depth. Just a tiny bit. Just to give them a little bit more of a taste to them, so you feel a little bit more for them, if you know what I'm trying to say, especially for those who played the game. But yeah, I liked this story. I liked it a lot, and I kind of wish it was almost the main game, like I said. But now it's time to talk about the design and the gameplay. So many of those, this was the biggest problem I had with the original Xenoblade 2, was the way things worked outside of battle. I felt like in the original 2 there were so many little things about the system like that irked me, and the number one thing is that the system didn't explain itself. There was no tutorial. Like, the tutorial, they gave you tutorials on a lot of stuff, then it was never detailed enough if they did, and you can't look up the tutorials up later. And it just felt like it was a lot of complications where it didn't need to be, UI and just gameplay wise outside of battle. And it felt like I felt like one big thing, like the spider's cave. There's people don't know that I think from what I know about from when I talk to my friends, the spider's cave is very infamous around me and my friends. I don't know if it's in the community, but I felt like a lot of the problems that the game had amplified itself in the spider's cave. The spider's cave in the original too. And like the field skills and not telling you what that you need to keep a lot of your blades, even the default common ones, you know, keeping, you know, having a lot of different variety of blades, upgrading your blades, how to upgrade them, because you have to go into the menu to upgrade them, you know, and like a lot of that stuff really irked us. And I think even the battle, some of the battle mechanics weren't explained well, like the burst system, like one of the most important things about Xenoblade 2. About, you know, get those little orbs fly around your character. I didn't even know what the hell those orbs were at the very beginning. I was like, what are these orbs flying around my character for? Like, what are these supposed to represent? I didn't know that they were supposed to be like the one that the things that you use during your super attack. I didn't even understand the reasons behind having a burst because I couldn't go back and look at the tutorials. And at the time I was playing the game, I was out of town and the internet was really bad, so I couldn't really look up anything. So I was just sitting there looking at like going through the game hard mode. And that really sucked. That really sucked about the original. And the gacha system kind of, you know, could determine how well you progress through the story, because some characters have a lot of the skills you need. Some of them don't have any. Some of them are just common blades. You didn't know that you need to add the common blades to your party to activate the skill. You thought it was just automatic. So you had to go in the menu, take your old blades out, you know, put the common ones in, take them back in. If you see another area, take them out, put them back in. There's a lot of issues, like technical issues I had with the game. A lot of design issues I had. But I gotta say, this game got rid of like 50% of that. 50% of that. And like there were still some issues with the tutorial. You still can't go back and see them, I don't think. But I felt like the tutorial they gave you just enough of a taste to understand, to at least understand a little bit of what you're doing, just enough so you can probably play around with a little bit, even if it doesn't like, explain in detail. And I really like that. And I think a big part of that helped that too is that you have a set blade set, which as much as I like the gacha system from 2, I think the set blade set made things so much simpler. Like you just had, I think, about 2 blades per person, two blades per character, and there were your set blades. You know, you didn't have to upgrade them anymore than you had to already. You know, they were already upgraded. Everything was nice. The blades were there. And it just felt like everything was a lot more easy to understand and everything was a lot more simple. And this how the topple system and knocking people down and getting them back up and slapping them down with smash and all that stuff, that was just so much more intuitive and honestly, because of the switch system, was a lot cleaner. I actually like the switch system a lot more than the blade change system, which I know some people might disagree with me with there, but I do like the switch system. It felt really cool, and the characters were really flashy. It was nice. Close to the last thing I want to talk about. The second to last thing I want to talk about is just the graphics. I think the graphics were great. I like the graphics a lot. I think it's very similar to the original 2, but I think it is upgraded a little bit. And the cutscenes, as I say, in 2, the cutscenes felt like some of them were good and some of them were amazing. And like especially the first cutscene in the first game, like the one where you first meet Pyra and you guys like first fight with Pyra, I think that was like the best cutscene in the game. And every cutscene in Torna, the Golden Country, is exactly like that. I feel like later in 2, there were some cutscenes where you're like, they kind of cut to the characters and they're fighting. They aren't showing the whole fight, and it felt like in this game they were showing all the fights, and it was so good. I liked it a lot. And I gotta say, there is pop in like the original. You know, sometimes it takes time for your stuff to pop in. I'm used to it. It's not a big deal for me. The frame rate sometimes is okay. Like when it comes to like graphical performance, this is okay. It's not bad, but I can see it bothering some people. But you know, it's okay. When it comes to sound design, which is the last thing I want to talk about, sound design was great. I like the voice acting. Well, great. It's great in a certain way. Voice acting is still on the side of and it's not the voice actor's fault, because they chose all the voices that I liked. You know, they chose pretty much every voice actor I liked from the original, and they put those characters that had the same voice actors in this game, and I liked them all. But I feel like the direction, I feel like the the sound director didn't really understand, didn't have enough material or understand how the characters were supposed to sound or the emotions that they were supposed to give still, but it was still better than 2 because it just because of the voice actors and just because of like what they, you know, just because of how it all came together. But I still felt like they were missing something in the voice acting, and it felt like it was more on the technical side. Like I feel like somebody didn't translate something right or something didn't go through right, because those voice actors felt like they didn't completely understand what they were saying all the way through or why they were saying it or the emotion behind it. But still, the standouts are still like Malos, Pyra, and I guess now I gotta say Addam. I think I liked all the voice actors this time around, because I didn't like. I mean, Rex was okay in the original game. He was just okay, but some of the choices in the original were a little goofy. This one, they all felt appropriate. But overall, I had a really good time playing Xenoblade 2: Torna of the Golden Country. I really am very curious to see if you guys had the same type of feel as I did about this game. I feel like it was a step above the, you know, it had a lot of things that were a step above the original, but I feel like they also had a lot of things that were kind of behind what the original tried to do, because I felt like there was a lot of time constraint. You could feel the time constraint on the game a little bit, but it was a lot of fun. And honestly, I'm probably gonna go back to it in a second later, and also I'll recommend you buying this as DLC for the original if you have the original, because I think you get like some protagonists from previous games and stuff if you get the DLC. So, you know, get it as a DLC. I think it's a little cheaper too. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. Tell me your experience with Xenoblade 2: Torna of the Golden Country. I know it's not a game that a lot of people played, from what I hear down the grapevine, but I had a lot of fun. So please hit the thumbs up and the thumbs down button. It doesn't matter which one. This helps when you guys are watching. Also hit the subscribe button, that little bell icon to join the rebellion, because I'm only about new friends. And I'll see you guys in the next video in our stream. Bye bye.